Tunnels, towers, rafts, and bridges. Ants truly are the most skilled builders on Earth besides humans. Here are 10 ant buildings that are totally incredible. Number 10. The Mega City. Ants are known for creating large nests, but this one took this reality to a whole new level. Excavated in 2012, this abandoned megacity was studied by a group led by Professor Louis Fauci. In order to study it, they poured in 10 tons of cement over a 3-day period and then let it sit for a month before starting their dig. What they discovered was a massive ant colony filled with food chambers, fungus chambers, highways, and side streets, and they estimated that a total of 40 tons of soil was moved in order to create the colony. Truly an incredible find. These tunnels just go to show how powerful ants can be. Number 9. Weaver ants. For all of you with tree houses in your backyard, you've got some competition. That's because weaver ants, which are found across Central Africa and Southeast Asia, are famous for creating treetop nests that are truly incredible. The ants make them by pulling leaves together into a massive cylinder, then tying them together using silk from existing larvae in order to make a self-contained nest. Often measuring up 1 to 2 feet in length, weaver ants can create these fascinating structures in as little as a few hours. Number 8. Carpenter ants. While most ants on this list personally construct their own structures, carpenter ants take a bit different approach. Instead of building, they are known to use already existing materials such as wood, insulation, and even concrete in order to dig out a series of tunnels for them to call home. Contrary to popular belief, they do not eat wood, but rather will burrow through it and carry out the sawdust-like residue their burrowing creates. Typically, these carpenter ants will target moist, decaying, or hollow wood, and considering their natural habitat is within forests, this can be useful in causing forest decomposition. However, this tunneling is not so great if these carpenter ants get into your home. Often going for moister areas such as windowsills, patios, and decks, these ants can wreak havoc to the structure of the wood, often causing it to break apart or collapse. As a result, these ants are the subject of thousands of online extermination videos. Number 7. Ant farms. Although humans may give ants the plastic frames to create them in, ant farms truly are an amazing ant building. For those of you that don't know, an ant farm is essentially a see-through plastic container filled with a material such as sand or dirt, and the magic of these ant farms is that they allow you to physically see the ants burrowing away. Although the classic ones that you are likely familiar with use sand, these are actually a lot more problematic than you might think. After all, if the container is knocked or moved, the entire tunnel system can collapse. However, what is becoming much more common nowadays is to fill the container with agar, which is a gel-like substance made from seaweed. This material is interesting because it is not only sturdy, but allows the ants to create futuristic-looking tunnels that can be composed of a variety of different colors. Yet, before you go out and buy one, think twice, as although they are very fascinating, you must keep in mind that if the ants escape, you could end up dealing with a massive infestation. Number 6. Yellow meadow mounds. Found across Central Europe, yellow meadow ants are famous for constructing mounds in the soil. Often as much as 1 meter deep and almost completely underground, the mounds these ants create are commonly known as anthills. Typically found in grasslands, lawns, and meadows, most mounds can have anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 ants. However, what makes these mounds interesting is that there is usually a very noticeable soil dome above the nest. These soil domes are essential as they help regulate the nest temperature and humidity. Now, while the outside of the nest may look rather dull, it's the inside that's truly intricate. That's because these anthills are made up of numerous tunnels, and the structure as a whole is reinforced by roots and rhizomes of plants. These roots and rhizomes are aided by the help of worker ants who defecate into the soil in order to fertilize them. As a final note, these mounds also have a flatter face which is oriented towards the southeast, which provides the maximum surface area possible in order to soak up the warming rays of the early morning sun. Thus, we think it's fair to say that yellow meadow ants certainly are a whole lot smarter than they look. Number 5. Ant rafts. Just like a human home, an ant colony can be devastated by the waters that come from major floods and hurricanes. However, rather than pack up and stay at a hotel 2 hours down the road, fire ants typically make what are known as ant rafts. On the bottom, a layer of ants will serve as the base to ensure that the rest of the ants don't get wet. From there, the rest tightly weave together until the raft can easily float. Keeping the larvae and queen ant on top in order to keep them out of harm's way, these fire ants can stay in this raft formation for weeks, only disbanding once the rafts hit dry land. From there, they will find a suitable area and create an entirely new colony that they can call home. Yet despite the raft being an ingenious invention, it is far from being completely safe. That's because fish and other aquatic animals will often pick off the ants as a quick and easy food source, and if enough are eaten, the entire raft will collapse. Additionally, There are often scenarios where the ants will not have enough time to form rafts due to the flooding occurring too quickly. For example, when Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005, the storm surges occurred so quickly that many ant colonies drowned before they could create the necessary rafts. Yet regardless of their less than perfect success rate, we think these ant rafts are still pretty clever. Number 4. Fire ant towers. We all know someone who struggles to reach the top shelf, but fire ants, who are only a few millimeters long and much shorter than a human, are practically immune to this problem. That's because they have the ability to band together to make towers. These towers are typically created as a temporary shelter and are usually used to either escape from a flood or disperse an ant raft. They can be created along any stationary beam such as a branch, log, or blade of grass, and are formed by the ants constantly climbing up and down so that they create an upwards flow, much like a water fountain in reverse. Typically, they keep the queen ant and larvae buried inside to shelter them from the elements and are usually successful in creating their tower so long as a few rules are followed. Most importantly, the ants will, number 1, move up until they reach an open spot. Number 2, will link up with other ants around them. Number 3, will not move if there are 1 or 2 ants on top of them. And number 4, will begin to move if there are 3 ants on top of them. This basic set of rules ensures that these incredible towers stay together, and they are a primary reason as to why these ants are able to survive hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes. In short, we think it's fair to say that these ants truly are savvy survivors. Number 3, anthill art. There is no doubt that anthills are incredible structures, so it really shouldn't come as a surprise that many artists have taken an interest in them. Although not a mainstream form of art, anthill art is becoming increasingly popular thanks to its ability to both create beautiful artwork and exterminate pests. You see, these pieces are created by pouring molten metal into an anthole. Once the metal cools, it then dries in place and is dug up by the artist. The artist then takes the massive chunk of metal and dirt and sprays it with a powerful water hose. This gets rid of all of the grime and reveals the many tunnels within, making for a beautiful sculpture. Now, the added benefit of this artwork is that it has the dual purpose of acting as an extermination tool. Typically, anthill artists will only pour this molten metal into the nest of ants that are invasive on someone's property and in need of extermination. This usually means that fire ants and carpenter ants are the victims, as they are typically rather dangerous and can easily damage and destroy buildings and structures. However, what is interesting is that the different types of ants often have very different looking structures. For example, carpenter ants will often have nests that are long and spindly. On the flip side, fire ants will often have nests that are stacked with multiple layers of small tunnels, looking very similar to a Christmas tree. In both cases, these art pieces are truly unique. However, if you want to buy one, you'd better be prepared to cough up some serious cash. That's because they typically come in at anywhere from $200 to $2,500 depending on their size, and the wait lists to buy them are often extremely long. However, if you happen to be a museum owner or teacher, you're in luck, as some artists will actually donate these incredible sculptures to museums and classrooms for free. On our end, we just think that any exterminators watching should really consider taking up anthill art as a side gig, as both your customers and your bank account will thank you for it. Number 2, ant bridges. Much like a real army regiment, army ants have a license to kill. Traveling as a colony, they are constantly on the move looking for prey to kill and consume. However, this task is often disrupted by the various trees, stones, and branches that litter the rainforest floor they reside in. As a result, they have adapted to combat things by creating ant bridges. Being anywhere from 1 to thousands of ants large, these bridges allow ants to fill in the gaps in their environment so that they can hunt and scavenge more effectively. In order to ensure maximum productivity, at any one time a large colony may maintain 40 to 50 bridges. However, there is a lot more science behind these ant bridges than you might think. You see, despite the fact that ants have very low cognitive abilities relative to humans, they can decide collectively whether or not to build a bridge based on an intuitive cost-benefit analysis. The general rule of thumb is that the ants will only use about 20% of their colony to build bridges before deciding that the opportunity cost of building a bridge is not worth the cost of no longer having ants to hunt and scavenge. However, given that these ants are completely unaware of exactly how many ants are in their colony, scientists speculate that they determine whether or not to build based on some basic rules. For example, if an ant is being walked on, they will freeze in place. However, if they feel that too many ants are trampling on them, they will unfreeze in order to go and hunt. Yet despite these abilities, it is still not completely clear as to how these ants truly make these ingenious calculations. However, these ants have not only gotten the attention of biologists, but of robotics scientists as well. In particular, there is hope that the thought processes of army ants could apply to the creation of swarm robots. The idea is that these tiny robots would be able to intuitively band together in order to make structures such as bridges and rafts during natural disasters. What's more, the hope is that they would be able to combat environmental challenges such as waves and gusts of wind by intuitively reforming into new structures if they were destroyed. However, with the challenges of making them smart enough and cost-effective enough to do this still a major obstacle, we guess that army ants will be the only creatures with this superpower for the foreseeable future. Honorable Mention 1. Ant webs. It turns out that ants aren't only one of the most common insects on Earth, but also one of the most popular. That's because just like the cool kid in high school, there are many insects that try to act and look like one. However, what's interesting is that these so-called ant mimics have actually evolved to resemble ants in size, shape, and color. As a result, there are many insect buildings that look like they were built by an ant, but that were actually built by a completely different insect. However, the most common ant mimic is the spider, as there are estimated to be as many as 300 ant mimic species of spiders worldwide. Now, the primary reason for this is because these spiders are trying to not scare away their prey. By looking like an ant rather than a spider, these sneaky spiders can often get very close to a real ant and then attack it before it realizes the spider's true identity. As a result, these spiders will often be able to use both their web and their ant disguise in order to catch more food than they would have otherwise. Yet it is also interesting to note that spider ants also often imitate regular ants for the exact opposite reason. You see, ants are a terrifying predator to many species of spider. This is because many ants can both swarm or shoot formic acid at a spider and quite easily kill it. As a result, many spiders adopt an ant mimicry in order to survive ant attacks rather than try and kill the ants themselves. Regardless, we still bet that these sneaky web-spinning spiders have caused a lot of confusion for both insects and humans alike. Honorable Mention 2. Termite mounds. Contrary to popular belief, termites are not at all related to ants. Rather, they are much more closely related to cockroaches and are of a completely different species. However, termites and ants still look and act pretty similarly, and in one area in which they are both extremely strong is in construction work. More specifically, the mound-building termites of Africa, Australia, and South America are the ones who definitely give ants a run for their money. Termite mounds are made of soil, termite saliva, and dung, and have a number of tiny holes to allow for ventilation. This ventilation system is aided by the help of a central chimney and a network of tunnels and passages. More specifically, the ventilation system works by allowing warm air into the porous holes, which then rises and mixes with the fresh air at the top of the chimney. This colder air then sinks and cools the bottom of the nest, where the majority of the termites reside. This system, therefore, prevents the termites from overheating and really is an impressive engineering feat. Not only are these mounds well built, but some are also exceptionally large. Generally, some of the biggest termite mounds come in at about 5 meters high, with the largest ever recorded being a 12.8 meter high monstrosity in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. These mounds also aren't exactly resource efficient, with the termites within often moving about 250 kilograms of soil and several tons of water in order to construct just one mound. Unsurprisingly, these are usually long-term projects, and these mounds often take between 4 to 5 years to build. However, their kryptonite is rain, and termites often work round the clock simply fixing the damage that has come from heavy rainfall. Regardless, termite mounds are undoubtedly some of the craziest insect buildings around. Number 1. The European Supercolony. Although humans typically view themselves as the only colonizers and empire builders the world has ever seen, it turns out that ants have a leg up on us. That's because they have built several supercolonies, which are essentially tunnels that stretch for thousands of kilometers and are home to billions of ants. And while these colonies exist around the globe, the European supercolony is by far the world's largest. Holding the Guinness World Record for being the largest colony of ants, the European supercolony encompasses a massive 6,000 kilometers and stretches along the coast from northeastern Italy to the northwest tip of Spain. The ant species responsible for this supercolony is the Argentine ant, which is an invasive species that came to Europe via imported plants about 80 years ago. These ants are atypical because they will burrow inside practically any material and will not hesitate to inhabit places such as concrete walls or piles of wood. Yet what makes them truly incredible is that in addition to having massive interconnected tunnel networks, they also share a common scent with every ant in their colony. This ensures that ants in the same colony are all recognizable to each other, and this holds true even to ants located thousands of kilometers away. As a result, some scientists even speculate that some supercolonies may remain related despite having oceans in between them, as these little critters can be found on every continent in the world except Antarctica. Regardless, we just hope that these incredible invaders stick to their tunnels and don't begin to put us humans in their sights. That's all we have for you today, folks, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below which ant building was your favorite, and if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on all of our latest content.